The news here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Oil companies are now working with the Philippine Coast Guard to deliver additional fuel supplies to areas badly hit by Typhoon Odette. But the Energy Department believes that all gas stations in affected areas will resume operations by next week. Shaila Francisco has the details.
Residents continue to endure long lines at gasoline stations in Cebu City. And in some cases, their efforts are put to waste with limited stocks available, especially since some gasoline stations remain non-operational.
Sobrang hirap kasi ang time na nakukonsumo dito para maghintay, it's more than 2 hours, 3 hours to 5 hours. Then after 5 hours, pagdating mo dun sa pila, wala nang fuel. So babalik ka na naman kinabukasan.
This is also the situation in Bohol, where majority of the areas are still without electricity. The high demand is pushing fuel prices to double in areas affected by Typhoon Odette. On One News's agenda, Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar cited that a liter of gasoline in Siargao is sold up to 120 pesos.
Same with diesel, and the fare just to get away from Siargao to cross to the mainland of Mindanao, which is Caraga, yung pinakamalapit, itong Surigao del Norte at Surigao del Sur, would cost one person between 2,000 to about 10,000 pesos per head.
But the Energy Department assures the public that fuel supply is stable in the affected areas. In fact, oil companies are now working with the Philippine Coast Guard to ensure the delivery of additional fuel supply, with increased demand coming from trucks that will repair transmission lines and from hospitals to power their generator sets.
We also looked into the bulk facilities, like such as the depot. So we don't have any reason to worry as far as petroleum products availability is concerned. So no need to panic, no need to rush and hoard. No, don't do that, because it will make our problems mas mahirap for your community.
The DOE says it expects all gas stations in affected areas to be operational by next week. The agency is also increasing inspectors in these areas to monitor price hike.
Well, the challenge now is for the inspectors to be able really to document yung stations, specific stations na gumagawa ng ganyang quote-unquote overpricing. At kasama po na nag-ooperate sa inspections ang ating CIDG. Dapat masunod yung price freeze, though limitado yung price act covering only household LPG and kerosene.
Meanwhile, areas affected by Typhoon Odette also suffer from limited supply of food and water, causing prices to increase.
Wala namang magagawa yung mga price control na yan. Kung mismo yung mga nagpapatupad, gutom din. To tell you frankly, nagsimula na po ang looting sa iba't ibang lugar, sa Siargao. Wala na pong pakundangan, wala na pong pakialam, Ed. Parang Yolanda, Ed.
Andanar says they are asking the armed forces to bring in its contingent in Siargao to prevent looting in the area. Shaila Francisco, BR One News.
The Trade Department assures the public that they have started monitoring the price of goods in the areas hit by Typhoon Odette. This comes after President Duterte declared a state of calamity in the typhoon-hit areas. In an interview with Radyo 5, Trade Undersecretary Ruth Castelo said that most groceries and supermarkets are still closed due to the extent of the damage brought by Typhoon Odette. That's why they're focused on monitoring sidewalk vendors and sari-sari stores that may take advantage of the limited supply.
Pero meron ding mga bukas, tapos makikita mo yung mga nagtitinda, yung mga sa sidewalk or sa sari-sari store. Doon talaga kami medyo nakabantay dahil sila yung nagtataas ng presyo. Ito yung mga nag-hoard, yung mga kumuha ng maramihan sa mga groceries nung nakabukas pa sila at binibenta ngayon ng doble or triple na presyo. It's a violation of the Consumer Act naman, kaya naka-ready din yung mga tao natin to arrest them or to apprehend them para ma-file ng kaso.
The local government of Leyte is seeking funding to purchase galvanized iron, or hierro, to help rebuild local homes in the aftermath of Typhoon Debt. Governor Leopoldo Petilla told the chiefs that some businesses are already reopening in the province and that most roads are already passable. He added that the priority now is to help residents rebuild their damaged homes by at least providing them with galvanized sheets.
Kumbaga, nag-order na kami ng mga yero. Same as Yolanda, no? mga yero. So we will distribute mga yero kasi nung Yolanda ang sinasabi nila basta mayroon lang muna kaming bubong. May bubong lang kami, yung mga kahit walang dingding muna. And then syempre ang ano lang din is balik na sila ang ating agriculture, balik na sila sa pagtanim. Sabi ko, mabibilis muna yung mga katulad ng petchay, mabibilis yan so that they can sell it, no? And then pag nagka-income na sila, balik ng income nila, then they can use also that sa pag-reconstruct ng mga bahay.
Meanwhile, southern Leyte is still struggling with power outages and the lack of access to communication services. Worse, Governor Damian Mercado says they're also short on basic supplies and necessities.
Kami ng food, water, and medicine. Walang power, walang communication, but at least na open na lahat yung kalsada namin. Pinaka-importante din namin ngayon, ma-repair yung namin, yung mga hospitals, ang shelter ng mga tao. Ang Southern Leyte, may storm surge, hindi lang masyadong sabihin natin lakas, but lahat ng mga bahay along the shore nasira.
In Negros Occidental, the provincial government has provided generators for some LGUs, where power has yet to be fully restored. According to Negros Occidental's PDRRMO, they are still mobilizing relief funds and goods to assist the hardest hit LGUs. Communication lines are still mostly closed, which is why the national government has yet to consolidate the final casualty and injury reports.
Sa report namin, yung mga na-displaced and affected are 181,110. So yun din yung mga displaced yung sa data na nandito. May 39 kami na casualties as of this time, but yung yung PNP data namin sa casualties is 27 pa lang. So yung injuries naman ay 100 as LGUs are reporting right now.
We'll be back with more stories after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Two families in Cebu province are grieving the loss of their members after a building's firewall collapsed in the middle of Typhoon Debt's onslaught. Survivors are holding the building's owners liable for the tragedy. Greg Gregorio with this exclusive report.
Typhoon Debt unleashed heavy rainfall and strong winds for at least an hour when it made its landfall in the province of Cebu last Thursday. This extreme weather condition toppled down a 32-foot firewall at a building in Mandaue City, hitting 8 houses and killing 7 people. Among the casualties were Harold Batinga's wife, sibling, and 3-year-old twins.
Alam ko po, yung pagbagsak pa lang, patay na yung asawa ko. Kasi hindi na siya sumasagot. Doon pa lang, nakabaon kami. Sinasabi ko na sa misis ko na, salamat, wala akong sama ng loob. Puro pasalamat. Puro pasalamat. Salamat sa 7 years, sa pagmamahal at pag-aalaga mo sa akin.
Harold himself isn't spared from injuries as he sustained wounds and bruises on top of his fractured arm. He admits that at that point, he has lost all urge to live as he believed he already lost his entire family. But it all changed when until his eldest child called out his name from the rubble.
Tinawag po ako ng eldest ko, "Ba, are you still there?" Nagawa pa niyang magtanong, "Ba, are you still alive?" Doon na po ako sumagot na, "Yes, gang, I'm still here." Tapos, doon na po siya humingirap, "Ba, help me, help me." Eh, paano ko na matulungan yung eldest ko? Eh, ako nga hindi ko matulungan yung sarili ko.
The 6-year-old kid is now recuperating in the hospital. Adelpha Enoch also lost his dad, sibling, and nephew in the tragedy. She bitterly recalls how she was still able to talk to her sibling just hours before the typhoon arrived.
Sabi ko, kumusta ka na? Kumusta kayo ni Papa dyan? Sabi niya, okay lang naman kami ate. Sabi ko, pwede umalis na lang muna kayo dyan, evacuate muna kayo. Sabi niya, okay lang kami ate, okay lang kami dito. Sana alam ko yung ganito yung mangyayari. Sana kinuha ko na lang sila. Sa dami ng tao sa mundo, bakit sila pa, bakit kami pa?
Adelpha can't help but blame the company that owns the building.
Kasi buhay, hindi mo naman mabibili yan. Bakit di nila inabisuhan yung tao? At saka bakit ganun kataas yung firewall na nilagay nila? Alam naman nila na may bahay sa likod. Diba? Sana chinek nila ng maayos.
The company assures the victims that it will shoulder hospitalization costs for the wounded, as well as funeral and interment costs for those who lost their lives in the tragedy. In almost every gasoline station in the region, motorists have to face more than an hour queuing. To save time and effort, some of the motorists have already brought empty containers to refill. Aside from the high demand, there's only a limited number of gasoline stations in the province. While there are those selling bottles of gasoline, the price ranges from double to triple the regular price of a liter. Meanwhile, in Osmeña Highway, people troop to this well to get free water supply. Some have even done their businesses here, from bathing, brushing their teeth, and doing their laundry.
Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa talaga kami totally na nakapaglinis. May mga naiwan pa talaga mga putik.
In the pier, there's also quite a long line of passengers scrambling to board a ride to Bohol and Leyte. Problem is, operations are now limited because Typhoon Debt also damaged vessels including fast crafts. Slots fill up fast. That's why some pay visits to their pier every day in hopes of finally getting a ticket to escape the crisis they're in.
Uwi ako ng probinsya kasi nandoon yung asawa ko, tapos nag-alala ko kung ano nang nangyari kasi walang signal, hindi namin makontak doon. Wala lahat talaga. Collapse daw doon sa Cebu, Southern Leyte. Nahirapan kasi wala kaming tubig. Hirap talaga sa tubig doon sa Lapu-Lapu. Tapos wala pang mabili.
For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Time now for a quick look at some of today's headlines. Another brewing storm outside the Philippine area of responsibility is forecast to affect Surigao once again. the World Health Organization asks the public to hold off on holiday festivities for now, amid the threat of the Omicron variant. And the Limitless App Masters are now the first ever two-time champions in PBA 3x3 history. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us later at 10:45 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.